Hello Bookish friends, welcome to my wrap-up part 2. In this video I will talk about the 7 works that I finished in the second half of May. Like I did in my previous wrap-up videos, I will insert the clips soon after I finish those works. Today is the 16th of May and I finished the book that I was reading for Miserymay, which is also the second book in Kapak Kızı series by Ayfer Tunç, titled Yeşil, Peri, Gecesi. In this book we follow the infamous cover girl in the first book, Şebnem, and her protagonist is married to a once wealthy heir of a family who's not very successful. She is also very unhappy with her marriage, although she admits that she once had affections for her husband. She clearly now hates him and decides to kill their love for good with something that she is planning. And all throughout the book we follow different time periods of our protagonist from her life, and also try to discover what really killed her love for her husband, as well as what led her to being a cover girl for a pornographic magazine. I found the writing style of the first book very good, and it was the same for this one. Although the protagonist was really hard to like, I felt like I could understand her motivations, although not agreeing with them. I thought her characterization of especially the protagonist was very good. She also creates a mystery around Osman, her husband, who will be the protagonist of her third book in the series. Is also very intriguing and really made me want to read the next book in the series, Osman. The events that happened to our protagonist, Şebnem, is actually quite tragic, especially events regarding her parents. However, I have to say that some of the things that happened to her were the consequences of her own actions, but that actually made the book even more believable than a classic tragedy. So overall, this was a quite pleasant reading experience for me, and I gave Yeşil, Peri, Gecesi by Ayfer Tunç an 8 out of 10. Today is the 18th of May and I finished the second book that I was reading for middle grade May, which was also the next book in Paddington Bears series, Paddington Takes the Test. This book, like all of the books in the series, is a collection of interconnected short stories featuring the lovable clumsy bear who came from darkest Peru and was adopted by the Brown family, thus having the name Paddington Brown. And in this collection of short stories, Paddington takes the driving test, goes to visit a state house, helps out with his neighbors, and also goes to a mime festival, and then become a volunteer in a magician's performance. With the exception of the last short story, which Paddington became the magician's volunteer, I thought the stories in this collection were just okay. Most of the stories in the previous books have been much more funny and quite endearing. But since I'm determined to finish the series, and this was the 11th book in the series, I'm glad that I've also read this installment in this quite long middle grade series. Today is the 21st of May and I finished the e-arc that I received from the author, where we begin again by Adela, Tobin. I also read this book for mentalhealthmay. In this book, we follow the perspective of 3 different women. Lola, who thinks is pregnant with her lover's child. However, she feels very insecure and decides to discover what is bothering her about her lover. So she decides to ask this to her lover's ex-girlfriend, Sheena. On the other hand, we follow Sheena, who is a very outgoing and fun-loving woman who really loves to just live. However, when she receives this invitation from Lola, she also feels a very big discomfort about her ex-boyfriend's Brett's past. This brings a very unlikely friendship between the two women. Last character is Hannah, and we follow her from the past. Hannah is Brett's first love and also the mother of his child. Along with Lola and Sheena, we try to discover what really happened to Hannah and why she disappeared from Brett's life. I really like the plot of this book. I will try not to give spoilers, but I really like the use of mental health illness and its integration with the mystery. I also thought the author had a very clear writing style, and I liked the fact that the author took time for us reader to really understand what is happening and how the mystery was solved like an onion, layer by layer. However, I have to admit that at the first 20% of the book, it was a bit hard to understand what was really happening. Up until that point, I wasn't even sure which character we were following. But like I said before, after that point, the book became very, very engaging, and I very much enjoyed the plot developments up until the very last chapter. I was a tiny bit disappointed by the epilogue chapter and how it all wrapped up so quickly. I very much enjoyed reading this e-arc, and I gave Where We Begin Again by Adela Tobin a 7 out of 10. Today is the 26th of May, and I finished another book that I was reading for miserymay, which was a classic. İdam Mahkumunun Son Günü, The Last Day of a Condemned Man by Victor Hugo. In this classic, like the title suggests, we learn about the thoughts and the feelings of a man from the time that he is condemned to death until the time of his execution. But the majority of the book takes place in one day. And this prisoner talks about his past, what happens in the prison, other prisoners, and of course also about his feelings about his imminent death. This book fitted the Readthon miserymay very well because it was a very sad and heartbreaking book. It was especially heartbreaking when he talked about his family that he left behind. And I also quite liked the narrator of this audiobook. I think he gave the prisoners changing feelings and moods really, really well. However, it was very, very obvious that this book was a project book, and it was aimed at portraying the harsh conditions of the prisoner as well as the heartbreaking reality of how a man can be affected by a death sentence. It felt didactic at times. So with all of these positives and negatives, I gave Bir İdam Mahkumunun Son Günü, The Last Day of a Condemned Man by Victor Hugo, a 7 out of 10. Today is the 27th of May, and I'm at a 3 days holiday, and today I finished the short story that I was reading for middlegrademay and also for Spoonies Readthon, which was the last short story in the Wonder series called Shingaling. And in this short story we follow the first year of the children through the eyes of Charlotte, one of the secondary and well-liked characters in the Wonder universe. And when Charlotte is chosen for a trio of girls for the dance recital, she discovers that friendship is so much complex than what she initially thinks. And Charlotte, in her 10th year, she discovers that people can be very different than what they seem on the outside. I really enjoyed this short story, like the other books in the series. The novel is still my favorite, but I had a very big smile on my face while reading this one And I think it fitted the theme of the Spoonies so well in this regard. And I also thought that the friendship between the girls was portrayed so realistically, and I admired the author for this one, because sometimes in middle grade books friendships can be romanticized, and this can bring up disappointment to the children who are reading those books. Overall, I had a very good time reading this short story, and I gave Shingaling by R J Palacio an 8 out of 10. Today is the 29th of May, and I'm still at the holiday resort. And today I finished 2 books actually. The first one was the series book that I was body reading with Loretta, which was a book belonging to Dexter series, Double Dexter by Lindsay. And in this book we are continuing to follow the serial killer slash forensic Dexter Morgan. And in the beginning of the book he kills a child predator with his own methods. However, he notices somebody watching him, and after a deliberation he decides to eliminate the witness. During this time he deals with a murderer who kills cops, and during this investigation something happens that makes Dexter become a suspect in these murders. This brings trouble to his very content married life with Rita and his 3 children. Like the previous books in the series, I am very much enjoying the progression of the character of Dexter in the series. Also, the changing relationship with his sister, his wife, stepchildren, and the daughter whom he adores. His comments about family life and normal life are quite hilarious, filled with dark humor. And for this book, the mystery was very interesting, and I quite enjoyed trying to find out what is really happening. And especially the last quarter of the book was very exciting. Of course, I very much enjoyed body reading this book with Loretta again. I love our discussions about thrillers, mystery books, and grey characters in general. Overall, this was another great reading experience, and I gave Double Dexter by Lindsay an 8 out of 10. The second book that I finished was the book for category Romance Online Book Club, which was A Sheriff Star by Makenna and Lee. And I could count this book for Spoonies Readthon again, because the main character had a daughter who had Down syndrome. In this book, our heroine comes to a small town to work in a museum with her child. She rents a small cottage from the sheriff of the town, and as she performs her work, which she likes very much, she tries to prepare herself for the open heart surgery that her daughter has to go through, while trying to fight her feelings for the sheriff, because after her ex-husband abandoned her because he discovered that they would have a daughter with Down syndrome, she does not trust people's kindness would last. This book really surprised me because although I quite enjoyed the romance aspect, the relationship between the daughter and the sheriff was very good, and I adored the relationship between them. And I learned a lot of things from this book about the feelings of a parent who had a child with Down syndrome. It was heartbreaking, but also I very much admired the main character of the book and her relationships with the other characters in this small town was very cute. I shed a few tears at the end of the book, and I gave A Sheriff's Star by Makenna an 8 out of 10. Those were the 7 works that I finished in the second half of May. Please comment down below. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, and what did you think of them? If you're a new viewer, first of all, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye. As for Turkish word of the day, I'm going to choose a very easy word today, which is sheriff. Sheriff means sheriff in Turkish, and sheriff is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.